What is up, guys? So I have had an absolutely insane start to November. I've made over $60,000 in profit in the first 4 days of the month. So what I wanted to do in this video is just kind of break down which sports books I think are most exploitable, the easiest books to beat with the biggest edges that I think you can probably crack a lot easier than some other books. These books are much more beatable. So let's get into number 5, the book that I believe is 5th most profitable that I'm currently using, and it is called Rebet. Okay, so Rebet is a sweepstakes book, which means it's legal in a lot of states. So Rebet is legal in Texas. FanDuel, DraftKings, they're not legal in Texas. However, Rebet, because it's technically a sweepstakes book, is allowed to be offered in nearly all states, which is kind of crazy, kind of interesting, but regardless, you probably have access to Rebet if you're in the US. So the main strategy that I've been using on Rebet is called cross-market plus EV betting. I truly believe this is the most profitable betting strategy, and what's amazing about it is you have a very high confidence in your edge. So essentially, whenever arbitrage exists, what is cross-market plus EV betting? And I've done a full YouTube tutorial on cross-market EV betting. You can see a thumbnail here, and we'll include it in the description. But essentially, whenever arbitrage exists, so whenever two sports books have such different prices that you can bet equal and opposite outcomes to guarantee a risk-free profit, one side of the arbitrage opportunity has to be a profitable bet, right? If you can place two bets on two different books, equal and opposite outcomes, and guarantee a profit, one of those two plays has to be plus EV. So I'll give you a simple example. Is for this weekend, I locked in Falcons +7 at -120. On ProfitX, which is a really smart book, they had Colts -7 at +124. So that's arbitrage. You can't have +124 on the Colts spread, -120 on a different book on the Falcons spread. Because again, I could go to ProfitX and bet on the Colts. I could go to Rebet and bet on the Falcons and guarantee a risk-free profit. So one of these two bets has to be plus EV. Rebet is a very soft, easily beatable sports book, and ProfitX is a really sharp book. So ProfitX is a peer-to-peer betting exchange. So the people setting lines on ProfitX are very smart. It's market makers, trading firms. Those are the people offering liquidity on ProfitX. So it's actually a very smart, a very sharp book. So basically, whenever you have a crossed market, 99.9% of the time, the profitable bet, the plus EV play, is going to be on the soft book, which in this case is Rebet. Rebet is a very soft, easily beatable sports book. ProfitX is super sharp, so the value is on the Rebet side. That is the plus EV bet you want to be on. And again, you have a super high confidence in your edge when you're cross market EV betting, because you always know in every arbitrage opportunity, one of the two plays has to be plus EV. Granted, one thing I do want to mention is you don't just have to look at these really sharp betting exchanges, ProfitX and Novig. You can look at other sports books as well. So for example, Pinnacle is a very smart, sharp book, and they had Falcons +7 priced at -138. So they had the Falcons on the spread as a much bigger favorite. They had this at -138. Rebet was -120. So if you devig Pinnacle's market, you'll see that the fair price with the VIG removed was approximately like -127. That was the true line on Falcons +7 once you devig the market. So the next platforms, number 4, this is actually going to be 2 books, is I'm going to talk about these peer-to-peer betting exchanges. They're very exploitable, very profitable. I'm not really EV betting on these platforms. As I've said, Novig and ProfitX, you can definitely make money EV betting if you pick the right spots. But mainly the people offering liquidity on these peer-to-peer betting sites are trading firms. They're syndicates, they're market makers. They are not people that you want to be trading or betting against, right? You don't want to be placing a bet. You don't want to be taking the opposite side of Citadel Securities, some really smart quantitative hedge fund who's now market making on these platforms. That's not what you want to do. So the main way that I'm exploiting these peer-to-peer betting sites is with arbitrage. So arbitrage, I've made full YouTube tutorials. It's the strategy that I used when I started gambling. And all that arbitrage is it's when two books get so out of sync, they have such different prices that you can hedge for a guaranteed profit. So you're not cross-market EV betting. In this case, you're actually just betting both outcomes to guarantee that risk-free profit. So I've hit some massive arbitrage bets between ProfitX and Novig, these peer-to-peer betting exchanges. And here's an example from an OddsJam user where he made like $140 risk-free profit. You bet the over on one book, the under on a different book. These peer-to-peer betting exchanges have no max betting limits, which is why you'll notice OddsJam users are able to slam, absolutely slam arbitrage bets for massive amounts of profit, $50, $100, $200. So if you're interested in risk-free profit arbitrage betting, you gotta be on these peer-to-peer betting exchanges if you have access to them. ProfitX and Novig, they're legal in nearly all states and are extremely exploitable. So the third book I've been having a ton of success on is Fliff. So this is another sweepstakes book. So just like Rebet, it is available in most states. And unsurprisingly, very similar to Rebet, the main strategy I've been using for Fliff is cross-market EV betting. So Panthers plus 705, that is a play I locked in last weekend. There was over $100,000 in liquidity crossed on ProfitX and Novig with Fliff. So the higher amount of liquidity that's crossed, the higher confidence you have in your edge, right? You could have bet $100,000 on the Packers, right? Obviously, Fliff only has a max bet size of 250, but when liquidity is high, you have a much higher confidence in taking the other side, the cross-market EV bet, which in this case, again, was Panthers plus 705. So after Fliff, second on the list, I have what I call the easiest books to beat, but with horrible limits. And I'll kind of explain that. So I have Hard Rock, BetMGM, and Dabble. Hard Rock and BetMGM are sportsbooks, and Dabble is a fixed payout DFS site. So I believe these three books are the easiest books to easily get a 10% ROI on, which is really good, right? If you're betting $1,000 a day on Hard Rock, you're gonna make $100 in projected profit every single day, $3,000 per month. So the reason I group them together is all of these books are super easy to beat, but unfortunately they have horrible betting limits. So on all of these platforms, at this point, after making like $20,000, $30,000 on these different platforms, they've cut down my max bet size to about $10, $20. So I don't use them as much. They're still extremely beatable. I've just had my bet sizes cut down a ton. So any new sports bettor, I typically recommend, if you're looking for a sports book that is the easiest to beat, you should try Dabble if you want to play fantasy, fixed payout fantasy. Dabble's the easiest DFS platform to beat. It works just like Prize Picks. And if you have access to regulated sports books, Hard Rock and BetMGM, those are the easiest books to beat. So here you can see an example of a profitable Dabble slip I locked in. The first pick I locked in my Dabble slip was Kyle Filipowski under 8.5 points. So Dabble is a fixed payout sports book. What that means is on Dabble, any 3-pick entry, you're getting a 6x payout. So if you take Kyle Filipowski's over or his under, it doesn't matter, you are going to get the same payout, 6x. So why did I take his under? Well, this play was a crossed plus EV bet from the OddsJam Sharp Money tool, and you can see that Novig and ProfitX, these really sharp peer-to-peer betting exchanges with trading firms setting their odds, they had Filipowski's over as a plus 134 underdog with a decent amount of liquidity. So if his over is being offered at plus 134, that's underdog odds, that means they want to bet his under at minus 134. So on Dabble, when you break down the math behind this fixed payout DFS platform, you'll see that you're essentially getting minus 122 odds for any play in a 3-pick entry. So you want to be on Filipowski's under. We're getting minus 122, and these really smart market makers are trying to get his under at minus 134. So we're kind of copying their homework and getting minus 122 and a dabble slip. We know that his under is the much more likely or favored outcome since his over is offered at plus 134. So we're taking his under in our dabble slip. Anyways, the final book I have on this list, number one, I've been absolutely crushing this book, is DraftKings Pick 6. So this is another fixed payout DFS app like Dabble, like Prize Picks, but what's really nice about it is they do not limit. I'm able to play things for a lot of money. So I have stacked up so much profit on DraftKings Pick 6 this year. So I'll give you an example of a play that I locked in yesterday in this slip I hit. I had Emmanuel quickly under 16.5 points. You can see his over was offered on ProfitX, a super sharp book, as a big underdog. We know his unders the favored, the more likely outcome. So that's the sharp profitable pick we want to be on DraftKings Pick 6. DraftKings Pick 6, once again, you take his over, you take quickly's under, you're getting the same payout, 6x for a 3-pick entry. So we want to be on his under since that's the heavily favored outcome according to these very sharp betting exchanges. So I hope you enjoyed this video on the most exploitable sports books that I'm currently using. If you have any questions, comment them below. Hopefully you guys have some success betting on all these platforms, take these books for a ton of money, and have a great rest of your day, guys.